Hey everybody, and welcome to this, Premier League review, the first one of the season. We've had the opening weekend, if you want to call it that, I guess, but it was Monday as well. The opening games, let's say, of the 2020-21 season. It's all been a bit weird. It doesn't quite feel real. But we're here. No fans still, unlikely before probably the end of October. And even then it will be quite low numbers. Very short pre-season. Transfer window still open. So, yeah, really weird. And these games were also weird in a way because I felt some teams looked like they were pretty fresh and had done a lot of training and gelled as a team, and some teams definitely didn't feel like that. But I mean, let's go through them, I guess, from a chronological point of view. I guess we would say first one was Fulham v Arsenal. We'll get to the fantasy football thing in the end. We'll just go through here. So 3-0 to Arsenal against Fulham at Craven Cottage. I don't think anybody really expected Fulham to win this. I think Arsenal are looking pretty good under Arteta. They're looking like a different breed. This is the sort of game where in the past Arsenal would have slipped up, you know. I seem to remember not too long ago Arsenal playing Aston Villa as the first game of the season and either drawing or losing. That was under Wenger's kind of regime, and Arsenal always seemed to do quite well against the kind of top teams, but always seem to struggle against teams where they should on paper comfortably be beating. But they very comfortably beat Fulham, without a doubt. I will say Fulham look pretty terrible. I haven't done a Premier League prediction video because I personally feel like it's just worthless to do one while the transfer window's still open. I mean, if I was doing one, I'd probably put Fulham at the bottom of the table, but they could also sign 5 players, by the end of the transfer market. So, which might change my view. So, I think it's completely worthless to do a prediction video yet. I will do one, but I will wait until the transfer window shuts. I'll do like a combined one looking at transfers and things like that for people. But yeah, Fulham look like they need to strengthen pretty quickly. They did not look on their game. They look like they have... I mean, you have kind of 2 different sets of teams which come up, don't you? You have... 3, I guess. So you have a team like, say, Sheffield United, who are very well drilled. And while their players are not necessarily individually Premier League quality, as a team and the way they're set up, they go about their business very, very well. But also what's important is they have a particular style of play that doesn't play beyond the capabilities of their players. When teams come up from the Championship, they often can win the Championship with a particular style, whether that's Norwich, 2 seasons ago with this kind of attractive passing football. But then when you get to the Premier League, you have an issue because the level goes up. Your players need to be technically a lot better than they are, and so if you don't strengthen, you can't continue to play that style. Sheffield United did very well because their style didn't rely on perhaps the technical ability, but rather tactical ability, tactical awareness. Certainly they have some very good players, but hard work, and just being exceptionally well drilled, and that gets you to stay in the Premier League with players who perhaps in another team wouldn't be good enough. I don't want to disrespect Sheffield United's players because they're clearly very good at what they do, but it's a combination of everything with Sheffield United. The reason we saw Norwich go down was because they came up, expected their players to be able to do the same thing they did in the Championship in the Premier League, and that is not the case. There is such a gulf difference, and I feel like there is a real... I don't know if people understand that or not, but it seems strange sometimes, because you're like, listen, it's 11 players against 11. Anything can happen. But when those 11 players are so well drilled, like Arsenal are beginning to be, technically brilliant, know exactly what they're doing, and have a couple of really, really exceptional players, then you don't stand a chance against that playing. And Fulham, let's be honest, they scraped up from the Championship. People expected Brentford to be here in their place, not Fulham. I don't want to disrespect Fulham because it's a wonderful achievement, but I worry for them. I really do, unless they strengthen. They do have Areola to come in, Alphonse Areola, who was on the subs bench because I think he was quite late coming in. Who'll be better. To not play Mitrovic, I find interesting because I feel like he is just going to do a lot more damage than I mean, it could be a fitness thing. I'll go into the whole fitness thing because I think that's going to be really interesting in the Premier League. But bottom line, Arsenal were way too good for Fulham, and what's, I guess, encouraging to look at with Arsenal is that they're a team now which are getting very good at winning the games they're expected to win, and those games they're expected to win are increasing. If you say, Arsenal are expected to win 75% of their games, maybe it's a bit high, maybe 70% of their games, they're getting towards that target, but also that target is rising as they get better players in. They gave a debut to Gabriel Magahal. I can't even pronounce Gabriel. They gave a debut to Gabriel. He looked really solid. He's going to have bigger tests without a doubt in the Premier League. But he looks solid. Got a goal, good header, pretty lax marking, it's got to be said, but good header. Got his goal. Up front, Willian was excellent. I think they classified it as 2 assists, but there was an argument to say it I don't know, I thought somebody said that he got 3, but maybe they chalked one off. But it was interesting that Arsenal left like Pepe on the bench, Saka as well, who's looked good, Ceballos. But this season's going to be a weird one because strength and depth of squad is going to be so vital. Players are coming off their shortest pre-season ever from a weird season. So they're not going to be as fit, and we've seen that with a lot of players who've looked really off the pace. You've had this weird international break recently, which was completely pathetic in my opinion and should never have happened. But you had this international break which was almost farcical with how bad some players were, how unfit. You're having a time where transfers are coming in. You have this constant threat of people having to self-isolate from COVID, tests, etc. And it's weird. Strength and depth of squad is going to be good. So the fact that Arsenal have such a strong bench here, this is a really strong bench when you look at it. I know they're going to be getting a new sub-goalkeeper, but otherwise it's pretty decent, especially attacking-wise. Pepe, Nketiah, Saka, Ceballos in midfield, Willock's decent. That's very strong bench. I think Arsenal could do all right this season. I still think they need central midfielder. I've seen them linked with a lot of people, but otherwise I think they're good. I don't think El Nenny's a long-term starting choice, but I think bringing the odd game, he's definitely an option. I wonder about Ainsley Maitland-Niles if he's going to keep his place long-term. And they've obviously got a lot of injuries to central defenders. Which they need to kind of address, I guess. But they have strengthened in central defence with Gabriel and Saliba, and now Aubameyang, which is probably people will say, that's their best signing, but realistically, keeping Aubameyang is massive for them. He is class, absolute class. He will get them the goals. I know Lacazette scored as well with a scruffy one, which would do him good. I don't know if he's still going to be there. I get the feeling if Arsenal get a bid for him, they'll accept it, but it's whether they get a bid or not, I guess. But overall, I think Arsenal looked really good. Fulham, they had 2 shots on target, and they just never really looked up at the pace. I like Scott Parker in a way, because he's I kind of like what he has to say, and I feel like I don't know, I feel like he's a likeable person, Scott Parker, but I just think he's well out of his depth, in all honesty. I think he's completely out of his depth, and I would imagine he won't make the end of the season, but we'll see. I can't. You don't want to see people get sacked, but you also like, well, yeah, it doesn't look good for him, does it? But yeah, Arsenal looking really strong. Absolutely would have expected them to beat Fulham comfortably. They did. They can only beat the team that's put out in front of them. I don't think Fulham are going to test many teams this season. I think it's going to be a really, really long slog for Fulham fans out there this season. But you never know. As I said, the transfer window's open. They could sign 4 or 5 players and completely change the setup there. We'll see how that works out for them. Next up, we've got Crystal Palace against Southampton. Most people should know by now I'm a Crystal Palace fan, so I was delighted with this win. I find it weird. Everybody has written Crystal Palace off this season because we're a good side. We're a solidly drilled side. And I know people go off the back end of last season where there was this 7 winless run. We didn't come back well after lockdown, but we were already safe by end of January. So I find it weird that people had kind of written us off, and we've made some very good signings. I think we've addressed a couple of positions that 3 positions that we really needed to do. So we got a right back in Ferguson. Now I know he's injured at the minute, but he will come back, and he's young and he will be very good. We have now somebody who maybe not rivals, but is a threat alongside Zaha in Ereberechi Eze, or Eze, I think it is actually. Sorry, not Easy, Eze. By that, what I mean is, in terms of like a dribbler, somebody who brings the ball forward, takes on players, is dangerous in and around the box. Zaha was always the guy for Palace, and often he'd get marked out of games or he'd get wound up, etc. But we now have a reliable alternative, or even hopefully someone who to play, in the same team as. So I certainly think that we didn't spend 20 millions on him to keep him on the bench. I know the reason why he was he picked up a kind of an injury in pre-season, and they're trying to bring him back in a bit slowly. But he looks quality. I'm probably more excited about him as a player coming to Palace than I think I ever have been since probably Wilf came back. He looks the real deal. The fact that he's this kind of young English talent, he only came on for like 9 minutes, but in that time he did a dribble that just absolutely destroyed Kyle Walker-Peters, who was on the floor. If Leo Messi had done that, people would be making YouTube compilations out of it. But he looks the real deal, I think. And once he gets back to fitness, once he steps in, he doesn't look out of his depth. Coming up to the Premier League. And we of course have signed Michy Batshuayi, who has been with us before, had a pretty good spell. I think he got 6 goals in 15 games, something like that, I think. Knows a lot of the players, is a finisher, which is what Palace have needed. Yes, he's probably not good enough to play for Chelsea, well, especially not now with Timo Werner, I guess, but I think he's going to do very well. We've got him on loan for the season, I think, with a potential option to buy at the end of it, depending on how we see. But I think that's 3 positions that we have strengthened that we needed to, and certainly in sort of Esse and Ferguson, young players, because there's always been this criticism that Palace are very ageing players, which is completely true, But we've addressed that, and we're also looking to sign Saeed Berahama, I think it is, of Brentford, the kind of left winger, which a lot of people are saying is going to be, he's a replacement for Wilf, who's going to move on. Now, I haven't seen any rumours of Wilfried Zaha going anywhere, to be completely honest with you. and I mean, everyone knows he wants to leave, but there's a difference between wanting to leave and agitating for a move. What I mean is, Wilfried Zaha is on a good thing at the minute with Palace. He's loved by the fans universally. There's not one fan out there who's like, Wilf doesn't deserve to be in the team. He's on a good contract. He's the highest paid player at Palace. He's on a very good contract, so he's not earning 20 grand a week sitting at home. I think his contract is like 100 grand a week, and you might argue and say, well, he's going to earn more somewhere else. Yes, but what I'm saying is, he's not poor. He is getting, and he has a role in the team that essentially we build the team around him. He's the focal point of it. He gets the ball the most out of all the players. So from his point of view, he's not unhappy at Palace, but he wants to test himself at a higher level, which is absolutely understandable. And I don't think there's a Palace fan who, doesn't think he doesn't deserve to play for a bigger club. I think the issue is that with COVID-19, etc., there are no clubs coming in for him. And, Palace have a valuation of him, which people are scoffing at, same as they did last year. But at the end of the day, he's our player. That's what we're doing. It's the same thing Dortmund are doing with Sancho. They're saying Sancho's worth 100 and something million to us. Either you pay it or he stays with us. He's not unhappy enough that he's going to refuse to play, go on strike. You saw him the other day scoring a goal for Dortmund. Like, he's going to play. The slight difference with Wilf, I guess, is that Sancho can afford another season in his career. Wilf is now like 28, so he's literally at that peak, which is also, I guess, what is putting some people off, in that there's perhaps no resale value on Wilf. So if you're going to spend 50-60 million on him, you're not getting that back other than the performances on the pitch. My thoughts are the only clubs that are going to come in for him would be foreign clubs, and I wonder how he would deal with that. I think if it was someone like PSG, he'd be okay with it, but again, I haven't seen anything to suggest that they would be interested in him or going for him. They already have quite the attacking force currently. They have a manager who I could be on his way out, might not be. I don't know. They've lost their first 2 games of the season. So I don't see a kind of a bid coming in there. I don't see the only other clubs. I could see a few German clubs being able to afford him. You might argue Dortmund, if they do sell Sancho, they might come in for Wilf, but it's not usually their style to buy the older players. It's usually their style to get the younger ones in and bring them through. So I don't know. I just have this feeling like he's going to be with us again. And if that's the case and we do get Said Berrahma from Brentford, we're looking decent, I think. A lot of people fancy Southampton. I wasn't so convinced. I thought they did well last season. I think they're very well drilled, but a lot of people were predicting like a kind of upper top half finish for them potentially. I never saw that because I just don't think they've strengthened at all. I know Danny Ings is a decent striker and Che Adams has been looking better and stuff, but I'm like, this is the same squad, and you lost Højbjerg to Tottenham and you replace him with Romeo, who is not as good. And they haven't really brought anyone else, so I haven't really understood the logic here. Now, having said that, like, I'd say probably a fair result of this one would have been 1-1. You can see the possession difference, but that it means nothing because at the end of the day, like, in terms of clear-cut chances, Palace did have more. Wilf could have had a hat-trick. I would argue he had 1 goal ruled off for offside, which on any other day probably would have been given. I think it was a very, very, like, I can't even say if it was offside or not. It was so, I think it's one of those ones where they've erred on the side of caution rather than the side of the attacker, shall we say. His actual goal was brilliant, Townsend with a fantastic kind of diagonal ball and Wolf just slotting that home. His confidence this season has been great. I put him in my fantasy team, actually, we'll see in a minute, but I put him in there because during pre-season he looked really confident, really good. He scored a brilliant goal. I think it was against Charlton, I want to say. You may well have seen it, but if not, look it up. It was fantastic, and he's just looked really good. He's looked fit. He's looked hungry, and I don't know if the other thing about this is the excitement maybe coming back for him with some of the signings we've made, where he's like, oh, hang on, I'd like to play with SC. I'd like to play with Batshuayi again, And even if Barama comes in, maybe, and I think it's interesting, whereas maybe he's felt before that the weight on his shoulders all this time, and then maybe with these signings coming in, he can be a bit more free and a bit more like, I can do my own thing, and going to have backup with me, and it could be an exciting time for him. Obviously, I hope he stays. Like, genuinely do. He would always be a Palace legend. I hope he stays. I hope he has a great season. But I'm also, if he does get that dream move to a big club, I'm also very happy for him. So it's a win-win situation in a way. I think what annoyed me last season was when we sold Aaron Wan-Bissaka and we just didn't strengthen. And I think that probably annoyed him as well. It annoyed a lot of people. A lot of fans were really annoyed at that. It does seem like we're spending that money now, which is fine. Seems like we might get, weirdly, some more money from Alexander Sørloth. If you don't know this story, it's a very weird one. Palace signed a striker a good few seasons ago called Alexander Sørloth. I think they signed him in the January transfer window. And he was kind of unheard of in terms of striker. I think he was playing in Holland at the time. But he was thought of as a potential talent. And we signed him. He played a few games. Didn't really work out. He went out on loan. One of the places he went on loan to last season was Trabzonspor, where he was banging the goals in. He looked like a man possessed. And now it seems like RB Leipzig are coming in for him with a £25 million bid. I think we only paid 10. Somehow we've made a profit on him, and he's looked awful when he played like a handful of games for us. So it's an interesting one. Maybe some of that money will get reinvested. I don't know. We'll see. But I think Palace, I'll always talk about their chances because what they have is a really good structure. I've talked about before, we're saying something like Sheffield United, but Palace are very similar in that they have this shape and this structure which is so solid, and the team is so well drilled. Hodgson will give you that experience he has. He knows what it takes to drill a team. He is old school, yes. You're not going to get Pep Guardiola like kind of stuff, but what you get is a very solid teams. And at the end of the day, whatever people want to say about attacking prowess, etc., defences win you leagues. I'm not saying Palace is going to win the league, of course, but what I'm saying is that defences are what win you games, And how much did we see last season with Liverpool, where their defence was so solid, and they would nick a goal right at the end of a game? It's not the attackers that are winning you that game; it's that defence who are holding on and not giving up any chances. That give you that chance to nick that goal and get those 3 points rather than a draw or even a loss. So I'm very excited about Palace. We have a lot of injuries currently. You can see we're playing Tariq Mitchell at left back, who's a young left back who had a really solid game. So that's Patrick Van Aanholt. We're playing Czech Kouyaté in central defence, who's a midfielder. Had a very solid game though. Scott Dan, if you asked me 6 months ago if Scott Dan would have played another game for Palace, I'd say no, but he's done very well. So, and Joel Ward is Joel Ward. Like, for people who don't know, I think Joel Ward was born in a bin out the back of Selhurst Park. Like it just feels like he's been at the club forever. But yeah, he's just like one of those players who's just an absolute legend. And yeah, Townsend had a really good game. Schlupp, I think, is a very underrated player. When you look at him, he's a weird player because when you look at a lot of stats with him and stuff like that, it doesn't, you're like, he's completely average, but the team always plays better when he's in there. It's weird. James MacArthur played exceptionally well. Juraj had a quiet one up front, but I certainly feel like last season was a bit of a one-off with him, and I think he's going to be solid this season, but we'll kind of see. I mean, I think he'll lose his place to Batshuayi, to be fair, but we'll see. But yeah, Palace, I think, looking very solid. And Southampton, as I said, unless they strengthen, I don't see them getting anywhere apart from mid to lower half of the table. Personally, I don't think they were terrible, but they just didn't really have that. I mean, we kept Ward-Prowse very quiet. That was James MacArthur. It's a weird one, but very, very happy with the win. It's a good start to the season. I don't think Palace have won their first match of the season for like 5 years or something. and I think as well, someone said that we hadn't won our first match of the season at home since like 1983 or something like that. It was ridiculous. So it's good. It's good. We all remember that kind of 9-match losing run Palace had, a few seasons back. It would be nice to have a good solid start. Now, the match I guess everyone has been talking about, Liverpool against Leeds United. What a game. I had very mixed views on both these teams this season. On the one hand, I feel like Liverpool, we all know about Liverpool, they're a very good side. They're the league winners. They haven't strengthened their side. But I don't think that matters a huge amount. It does to a certain extent. It's good to bring in new signings. It can rejuvenate the squad a little bit. But I think they had some very good youngsters coming through that it would probably be pretty good if they could give them, go. Curtis Jones, for example. They've got a few others who have looked really good last season when they played them in cups and things, when they had that ridiculous kind of fixture list. So I think that could help them out a little bit there. You have what looks like a rejuvenated Mo Salah. And yeah, I think maybe you could argue the pressure's off them a little bit because they've won the league. And that whole kind of, what was it, 30 years or whatever the hell it was really weighing down on them, and pressure building. And now, they're not favourites to win the league from the bookmakers. I think Man City are, but they're very close. But maybe that pressure is now off them a little bit, that they can be a bit more free. Defensively, they weren't up to much in this game. I don't want to take anything away from Leeds United, but they only had 3 shots on target and they scored 3 times. Admittedly, I would say that Jack Harrison's goal and Martis Klitsch's were very, very good finishes. But even Bamford's was actually a decent finish. But Liverpool will have sterner tests than Leeds United, and they need to defend better because they did not defend very well at all. A lot of their players looked really off the pace in defence. But as I said, it's going to be a weird season where players are going to come back to fitness at different times. Players are going to get injured. Players might not be injured, but they might need to isolate. And isolation doesn't mean, we can do some work, on the training pitch. It's like, you got to stay at home, buddy. So, sorry. So, yeah, it's a weird one with Liverpool. I think I would say that at the minute, I think that they will challenge very strongly for the league, and I couldn't split between them and City right now. Obviously, we've still got, as I've said before, the transfer window. You don't know who the hell's going to come in at either club. But it looks like at the minute those two are going to be the challenges, I think. As for Leeds United, I like what they do. I like the pressing. I like what they do. Again, defensively, very, very poor. I know they were quite unlucky with that last penalty. Rodrigo with just a real forwards tackle, which you could see the pain on his face when he did it. He knew exactly what he'd done. But what you will say about Leeds is they didn't give up at any point. It's very easy to turn and concede an early goal to Liverpool, give away an early penalty and be like, oh, well, that's it. We're done with. I don't know if not having a crowd helped Leeds, because obviously the Anfield crowd getting behind Liverpool helps, but they really did come back every single time Liverpool kind of pegged one back. They really did come back, and full credit to them. I'm not on the kind of Marcelo Bielsa, love parade. I think he like, he's not the be all and end all of football managers. He has a lot of faults in him. I think he's a very good football manager, but we've seen teams come up before from the Championship, and as I explained earlier, try to play the same football and get absolutely humiliated. His is slightly different, but I also think that this high energy pressing that he does, like relentless, I just don't know how this is going to work with the fixture congestion that the teams will have. I think they're going to be down to bare bones, and it worries me that they do not have any strength in depth to kind of cater for that, unless they sign a good few more players, which they certainly could do. So I don't really rate this Rodrigo guy either up front. He's played in the Premier League before, I'm sure, hasn't he? Was he at Bolton or something, weirdly? Doesn't say who he played for. I have this feeling it was Bolton. Yes, it was Bolton on loan. He scored 1 goal in 17 games. So, yeah, I'm not... I mean, listen, that was a long time ago. It was 10 years ago. But he was obviously a 19, 20-year-old then. And it's a lot different. I'm sure his game has improved a lot. But I think that's a bit of a risk. I know he did very well. I think he was at Valencia before. That's where I think they picked him up from. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by him, and I'm certainly not convinced by Patrick Bamford. I know he scored, but as a Palace fan and who has seen Patrick Bamford up front, I'm not convinced he's a Premier League striker. So I think Leeds are going to struggle this season. A lot of people weirdly are saying that they're going to get in the top 10 or whatever. I can't see that. I can only see them struggling down the bottom because of the way they play. I think they're just going to fade out by the end of the season badly. But as I said, we'll see. The transfer window is very much open. West Ham, Newcastle. Now, speaking of fading out badly, I mean, West Ham, wow. It's not looking good for them, is it? I thought Newcastle were clearly the better side, but they didn't massively impress me. I didn't watch this and go, yeah, wow, Newcastle are going to be really good this season. I think they look really solid. They clearly made some decent additions. They both scored, Hendrick and Wilson. They've got Fraser on the bench to kind of come on. Jamal Lewis is a decent player as well. But I think they'll be fine this season. I don't think they're going to push up the table or anything. But I think they'll be absolutely fine. I think a mid-table finish for them, it would be where they aim to get, as I said, unless they bring in some more players. But we'll see. But as for West Ham, I mean, they need something quick. They did not look good at all. They look flat. Their players look really down. They have had all sorts of issues off the pitch, and they just didn't look up for it. When you look at this bench and you go Felipe Anderson, Lanzini, Yarmolenko, Haller, I mean, what? The thing which bugs me is people go, their recruitment's terrible. Listen, these are not bad football players. This is what I don't like about when people... There is a case to say that some players don't fit in at a football club. Okay? Some players go there and it just doesn't work out for whatever reason, off the pitch, on the pitch, whatever. It just doesn't work out and they can go on somewhere else and do well. We're all human beings, players as well. They're not machines where you can just drop them on a football... it's not FIFA. They're human beings, and sometimes things don't work out, whether it's the style they play, whether it's the area, whether it's settling in, whatever it is. Sometimes they just don't have the same form they might have at a previous club or when they go on to other clubs. We've seen that so many times with players. That's why, you can argue everyone likes to laugh at Chelsea for losing players like De Bruyne and stuff like that. But again, if it just doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out, and you're better off just cutting your losses. But for me, those 4 players, they're very good players. What is happening at this football club where they're starting with, probably, I don't know how much, but Haller was like 40 million, I think. Yarmolenko was probably 20. I think Felipe Anderson was 30. Probably nearly £100 million worth of signings on the bench. And you're starting with, Mikel Antonio up front, who, no disrespect to him, had a very good end of last season, but that's who you're looking to lead your side for the Premier League. I mean, I don't know what has happened at West Ham. Like, people are tipping them for relegation, and I wouldn't necessarily say they will, but I always say in the Premier League, you only need 3 worse teams than you. But if they don't get someone in, like some sort of signing in, something to just give them a spark of hope, you get the feeling that once those fans are back in the stadium, it's going to be bad. So yeah, we'll see with them. But Newcastle, I think it was a solid win for them. They did well. They deserved the win. We'll see how they carry on, for the rest of the season. I think they have a solid team. It's better than it was last season. So fair play to Steve Bruce. He's not the flashiest manager in the world. He's not the most fashionable manager in the world, but he gets the job done. And sometimes you need that in the Premier League. Leicester against West Brom. Again, I think West Brom are really going to struggle in the Premier League. Leicester look decent here, I worry once more, always worry about the backup for Jamie Vardy. Kelechi Iheanacho, I don't think is good enough, and they haven't sorted that out. They've only signed Castagnet, and I know that a lot of fans of Leicester were unhappy with that, but he actually did really well. They might sign some more players, I don't know. They need to sign, I think, a backup for Vardy or someone to challenge Vardy. They've got to think of the future. Vardy's not getting any younger, and he can't. I mean, he scored 2 penalties, which is great, but you can't keep relying on him in all the time. West Brom, I think, are going to be in for a really, really hard season. I don't think they're a bad side. I don't think Callum Robinson is going to keep you in the Premier League. They've got some great players in midfield. They signed this Grady Diagana from West Ham, played him. Romain Sawyers I liked a lot. He was very good. Mateus Pereira I'm a big fan of as well. They had some good young players coming through, Keem Harper, for example. But yeah, I just don't think that they quite have the quality to stay. But they could surprise me. I think Leicester. I think, for me personally, the jury's very much out. We don't know. Are they going to be the Leicester of the beginning of last season? Are they going to be the Leicester of the end of last season? Or are they actually somewhere in between there? Are they actually probably a team suited to finishing about 7th or 8th rather than in the top 4, as they were kind of threatening to last season, or were for most of the season, but then kind of blew it a little bit. We'll see, won't we, this season? But I think they need a couple of signings to freshen up that squad. And certainly back up for Vardy, because that's when they will struggle. With all these fixtures and stuff, it only takes a COVID scare and they lose Vardy for 2 weeks where he's got to self-isolate, and you could lose him for 3-4 games. So, it's no good. Everton, Tottenham, this was a really interesting game actually, because much has been talked about with both these teams. We've had this documentary on Liverpool. I haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but I've seen some clips and stuff like that, and it looks very interesting. Spurs have signed Matt Doherty and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. It looks like they're going to sign some more. They've been strongly linked to Gareth Bale, which is going to be interesting. They look wildly off the pace in this game. They look very unfit. They just didn't look like they had any energy. Harry Kane, I don't know if he's carrying an injury or what, or just unfit, but he's not looked good. Never felt like Eric Dyer should be a central Premier League central defender. I don't think he's good enough. They have some great players on the bench, which they're not using, and Joe Hart. But Everton just played him off the park, in all honesty. This midfield of Allen, Decore, Gomez, Rodriguez is really good. I'm not getting carried away with the Everton bandwagon, saying Everton are back. Oh yes, I think defensively they're not quite good enough, and I still have my reservations about a striker, top quality striker. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin's decent, but I don't think he's going to fire you into a top 4 position. I hope I'm proved wrong, because he's a good young English player. And Moise Kean has not really picked up, as we know. But that midfield is looking very strong. Allen was excellent. He has been excellent, in Italy. Decore, I've always felt was a brilliant, I've always felt he was like a top 6 player in the Premier League, and I don't know why other clubs didn't go in for him, but it's good for Everton, I guess. Andre Gomez is a quality player who, again, Everton, I think, they got him on loan originally, I think, didn't they? And then they signed him, and they've kind of, I don't know, really. I always felt like he was too good for Everton, but maybe now he's kind of repaying that faith he's shown in them. And Rodriguez can be, I think the thing with James Rodriguez, or James Rodriguez I should say actually, is he's been at these big clubs, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich I think he was on loan at, and it's not quite worked out for him at those clubs. The reason I feel like is because he's the sort of player who needs a team built around him. He needs to be the main guy. He needs to be the playmaker. And when you put him in a team with other players similar to him or who want the ball, Real Madrid, there's obviously loads. You have Modric, Ronaldo, etc. When Bayern Munich again the same. I feel like you really limit what he can actually do and how well he does that. And he needs to be on the ball. He needs to show what he can do. He needs to be the main man, basically. I think Everton is perfect for him to do that. I'm surprised they managed to sign him. Really shocked. And they got him for a pretty low fee. I think they got all of those players for relatively low fee. Wages are going to be very high, and I do worry about Everton if they don't make a European place. They have a very rich owner, but eventually financial fair play will catch up with you. And if that owner gets bored or doesn't want to invest again, you have a serious problem because you have a lot of players on high salaries. But this year I feel like their recruitment is looking a lot better. Again, I still think they need central defence. I still think they need striker, but I think it's better than how it is. I apologise if you can hear my girlfriend in the background. She's working at the minute. I think she's getting quite agitated about something, but I'll just carry on anyway, and hopefully it is not too bad. But so Everton I think are looking pretty good. Spurs, not so much. I worry for Spurs. I think they're a very good side on paper, but for whatever reason under Mourinho, it's really not hitting, is it? They look very lackluster. They need to get back into that top 4. That's what they need. That's what Mourinho's there for. They can't afford to sack him and bring new players in. It's a struggle, and they've got the players to do it. In my opinion, they're just, so many of them are just not firing right now. Dele Alli's looked a shadow of how he's looked in the last few seasons. Or sorry, in the last season and a half or so, he's looked a shadow of how he looked in the 2 seasons or so before then. Defensively, they've gone from being a really solid unit to kind of being all over the place a bit. And then Kane has kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. We know he's a quality striker, but whether it's fitness, whether it's something else, I don't know. But whatever it is, he's kind of fallen off the cliff there. So we'll see. Sheffield United Wolves was I guess actually we'll get to Chelsea was first, but we'll do this one first. So Sheffield United against Wolves, you have where Jimenez, I think, proved that he is a really good number 9. He's a very good player. Very surprised no one's come in for him, but I'm not sure Wolves would sell him unless they really had to. Like he agitated for a move. They've signed this young player. Was he on the bench or was he not? Fabio Silva, yeah. This young kid. 18-year-old, very highly rated. They spent a lot of money on him, and I think people are expecting big things from this season. But give the kid a chance. He's coming to the Premier League at 18. They've got good players up front, and they can build upon that. So many Portuguese players, it's unreal, isn't it? But they did pretty well, I think, and. Roman Saiz got the goal as well from defence. Then Donkers looked like a solid signing for them. Traore was a bit quiet, but I think he's going to have a good season this season. He should get. They're playing him slightly differently. They were playing him as a kind of a right winger. Now they've moved into that right wing back where Doherty was. So perhaps he won't be able to do as much going forward. You won't see perhaps those commanding, quick runs. But we'll see with him. He could also do much better. But Sheffield United, I think, will be very disappointed with their with the way they played in their result. They didn't look up for it this one. And again, with them, I'm a bit worried because they haven't really made the signings. to freshen up the squad and get them pushing again. So they've signed out Ramsdale. They lost Henderson, so they signed Ramsdale from Bournemouth, but I feel like that's a downgrade, honestly. I know they didn't really have a choice, like they couldn't buy Henderson, but you feel like you know, it's not kind of working out for them. Very interesting that they have like an all kind of British Isles kind of an island or UK and Ireland kind of squad, isn't it? Very interesting. Brexit FC. But I guess there's Sanderberg there. Otherwise, it's weird. Then they got Ampadu on loan, didn't they? Ollie Burke they signed as well, who could do all right. But yeah, I worry about them. You're still playing Billy Sharp up front. Billy Sharp is 34. Not being funny. I never felt like he was a Premier League player in his prime, let alone now. So I think Sheffield United need to make some signings. I feel. I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll revert back to where they probably should be, which is mid to lower mid table. Without, obviously, if they kind of carry on as they are without some really good signings. But otherwise, I think it's going to be a struggle for them big time. But they're better than they showed in this game, and they'll get better. So we'll see. And then Brighton against Chelsea. So you've got Chelsea winning 3-1. All eyes are on Chelsea, weren't they? Because of the signings they've made. They're the ones who've gone out and they've really pushed to. Sorry, I just need to move my mic slightly. They've really pushed to get some top quality in there. Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, to name just two who actually did play in this game. But obviously you've got players like Ziyech in there as well. You've got Pulisic to come back. I know they had already signed him, but there's some top quality players. There's one position they need to sign, and I think every Chelsea player would say that, and that's the keeper. Kepa, that one goal that Brighton scored, which got them back in the game, really should have been saved. I think at this level that should have been saved. And as a one mistake on its own, you wouldn't necessarily say signing a goalkeeper, but he makes a lot of those mistakes. And I do feel that Chelsea's defensive issues, and let's face it, their defence was terrible last season. It was really bad. They conceded so many goals. It isn't just down to Kepa, but the goalkeeper has to command his defence, and I felt like that wasn't really happening. And I'm very surprised that they haven't really. I know they signed Thiago Silva, but again, I've kind of always felt that wasn't necessarily a signing for him to play 40 games a season. I felt like it was a signing for him to play 15 to 20 and also help some of the young players come through as well. Zuma and Christensen, two of those defenders, they're still both young. How old's Christensen now? 24, yeah, I thought he was about 24. Zuma is same? 25, yeah. So maybe help and guide them through to get them to the next level of their development would also be good. Would also be the aim, I guess, for Thiago Silva. Reece James was an absolute stonking goal, by the way. I didn't really talk about Salah's goal either, which was fantastic. His second goal, anyway. He obviously scored 2 penalties, which is not that impressive. Although you got to score them at the end of the day. But I feel like with Chelsea, they didn't impress me in this game, personally. Conceded possession. I think, I don't want to say they're lucky, because you're not lucky winning 3-1 in a sense, but I do feel that Reece James was an absolute thunderbolt, and I think it was a great finish. I don't want to take anything away from him, but they're not the sort of goals you score every game. And Zuma's goal was quite a wicked deflection, I think. Now, the Timo Werner penalty was obviously a penalty, and he's going to get a few of those this season. People underestimate the pace he has and the trickery. And obviously dispatched, which is fine, but I don't think that Brighton gave a bad account of themselves at all. I think they'll be fine this season. I do think they could do with a couple more signs, as every team could do. But talk of Chelsea being title contenders this season, I think it's a step too far. I personally don't feel like Frank Lampard is good enough. I think I don't want to slag him off or anything like that. It's not that. I think he could be a very good manager. I just don't think he has the experience yet to mount the title challenge. We rarely see rookie managers, and I call him a rookie. I know he's had a couple of seasons, one with Derby, one with Chelsea, but that's pretty rookie. We rarely see people come in and play that. And win titles. The exception is probably Zinedine Zidane, but you also felt like he walked into a Real Madrid squad that was incredibly experienced, and what Frank Lampard is doing at Chelsea is building a whole team, hopefully to the way he wants or imagines a team to play. But I'm not convinced on that either with him. I'm not convinced he knows what he wants yet from his team. And I feel like that, if Chelsea had a more experienced manager, I would be totally ranking them. I said last season I thought they had a team that could challenge for the title, and people were surprised when they finished in the top four. I wasn't, because I'm like, that team is way good enough to finish in the top four. This team is good enough to win the league. Maybe you could argue another central defender and a new goalkeeper, but they're capable of going out. They should be going out and getting that. And they've got great strength in depth as well. But I just don't see them getting higher than third, honestly, because of, well, there are a couple of reasons. So you have like someone like, I guess, Kai Havertz, who he's young and he's got to adjust to the Premier League. Same with Timo, same with all their signings. They have to adjust. You've brought a lot of players in, and defensively that they weren't great last season. I don't see them really addressing that, especially with the goalkeeper. So I think it's going to be a struggle for them, but we'll see. There's still a long time to go in this transfer window. We've still got a good couple of weeks, so we don't know kind of what's going to go on there. So we'll see. In terms of the Fantasy Premier League, 61 points. I went for Patricio in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Robertson. Obviously Van Dijk, Robertson, goal and assist. Clean sheet for Patricio, great. Alexander-Arnold did not have a good time. Zaha got his goal. I captained Aubameyang. I didn't have Salah, so I feel like I feel like I did very well in the first week. I'm really happy with it. The reason why I'm not obviously in our league, I'm 7th, is because I didn't captain Salah. Like, I imagine everyone who was in here. Oh no, actually, to be fair to Aubameyang, Blood Clot Yang, he didn't captain Salah either. I'm gonna guess everyone else. No, he kept it. Okay, I'm eating my own words here, aren't I? But definitely got to be the top ones. No, had Salah, didn't captain him. But I feel like a lot of teams which beat me captain Salah, and then did okay on the rest, but not as well as I did perhaps on the rest. I'm not going to like. I feel like with the Aubameyang Salah thing, I really was considering at about 9 o'clock on Saturday to put Salah in alongside Aubameyang and working out what I could do with my squad. And in the end, I was like, I'm really sorry, the people outside are chainsawing. We're going to finish soon anyway. But I really thought that I could get them both in. But I think I was just like, I'd have to change so much. And I was a bit iffy on Salah. Now, yes, he got a hat-trick against Leeds. And I thought Aubameyang would score more goals than one against Fulham's defence. But I still think, I was torn on it. But I'm still happy with what I went with, if that makes sense. Obviously, I can look back and go, should have had Salah in the team, should have captained him. But I don't think many people expected him to get a hat-trick against Leeds, to be completely honest. I think a lot of people expected him to score against Leeds, but I don't think many people expected him to get a hat-trick. So I feel not too bad about that, actually, to be fair. But I'm pretty happy with 61 points from the first week. Obviously, we've got Man United, Man City coming back. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my team. It looks like Werner might be out, so we might have to switch out Werner for a City or United player, which I'm fine with. But otherwise, if we look at Liverpool have got Chelsea. I think Liverpool are going to beat Chelsea, I think it's going to be really interesting, but I think they will. I'm happy with my Liverpool players. I'm going to keep them in. I think they'll get clean sheets, assists and goals across the season, so that long term, I think they're good. I think I might switch Werner out. I'll wait until a little bit closer to the time. Obviously, I've still got 3 days. I might put Mitchell in. We've got Man United. I think Man United might beat us, but I don't know, because this is the thing. It's their first game back. They're so rusty. I don't know how things are going to go. So it's going to be such a weird season. But 1.5 million out of 4 million, 4+ million, is not too bad, I don't think, actually, for a first week. Obviously in the league this week, United Adrian is the highest with 82. McCarthy in goal, very solid. Justin for Leicester, obviously getting there. Vinagre, I saw a lot of people have him in their squad. How many actually? Oh, okay, only 8%. But I saw him as a real tip that people were putting him in, but he didn't play, so wasn't that good. Salah, how many people got him? Only 36% actually. Salah, wow. But Aubameyang was what, 50, 46? Yeah, that's big. Vardy, great choice. Slightly regret not putting Vardy in. 21% people had him. Torre, 19% had him. San Maximum, 21%. Yeah. Antonio and Ings. You know, I feel like across the season they could do well, but we'll see. We'll see. And then let's highlight the bottom team at the minute. Charlie Furness. Okay, so he's going for a second week special, I guess. That's fair. You know, that's fair. He's going for the City United like combo there, perhaps. Long term, looking at long term, I guess, rather than wanting to play his wild card in season 2. 14 points for Leno, really? Oh, because Marshall didn't play, so it got doubled. Okay. Yeah, okay, interesting. Well, I feel like maybe, looking at this now, maybe he didn't realise that, or she, could be she, didn't realise that Man City and Man United weren't playing in the first week, because I wouldn't have captained Martial at that point. But listen, it's a marathon, not a sprint, you know? You're only 20 points off me, and I spent a lot of time thinking about my squad, so I don't know what that says. But yeah, I'm happy with 61. Average was 50. I feel like that's slightly high because of the Salah picks, but not too bad. Mitchell, I would like to have gone in, obviously, but I was almost hoping someone wasn't going to play. But to be fair, and to credit to me, everyone I picked played, and I'm happy with that, because sometimes that can be a nightmare. But yeah, we got some interesting games coming up next week, or this weekend, I should say. Man United Palace, I think, is going to be really interesting. I'd expect Arsenal to beat West Ham. I'm definitely keeping Aubameyang as captain. Chelsea Liverpool's a big game already. Southampton Spurs, I think, is going to have quite a lot riding at both. You know, Spurs are expected to be better. Southampton, people are tipping them for good things this season, and they weren't great against Palace. Leeds Fulham, is that going to be a battle for a 6-pointer relegation battle already? Villa United, that's going to be an interesting game. I think Villa have strengthened quite well with Ollie Watkins. I'm a big fan of him. And they didn't play this week, did they, Villa? No, they didn't. Yeah, I'm a big fan of him, and Grealish signing a new contract is obviously massive for them. I think they've just signed Martinez as well, actually. Yeah, they've just signed Martinez for 17 million. No thanks, Netflix. So that's a really good signing for them, I think, as well. So I think Villa could do good things, but once the transfer window's open, I'll do my prediction video. I just think it's just pointless. It's at best, it's pointless, and at worst, it's comment bait for people just to make predictions and piss off fans to get extra comments, which I'm not really into. So till next time, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.